Why are you filming me?
Because in case it goes away, I want to show someone what's going on with your eyes, okay? Can you bring them down?
No, not really.
Okay. Follow me. Come here. Follow me. Okay. You okay?
Yeah, I need a bracelet. No. Thank you.
My name's Jameson Gilroy Hart, spelled JamesonGilroyHart. And I would say my diagnosis, I think the first time I was asked this question, I'd say schizophrenia, or schizoaffective, which means schizophrenia with manic depression. But I still to this day don't know if it's a physical, but I still question that I might have a physical illness, like Lyme disease, which shows symptoms of schizophrenia. I need to get checked for Lyme disease. I think I might have had a slight brain aneurysm, or there's another word for what it is. But you can have a small valve in your brain burst, and you won't die from it, but you could. And I remember it being that way. Or it could be schizophrenia. I still have trouble accepting that. I really have no clue what my diagnosis is because I'm so confused about my life and my diagnosis. But what I'm not confused in is the present moment now. My future is clear to me, what I would like to do in my future. So I'm just hoping things will go smoothly from here on out.
To art school, he got scholarships and things, and he went to the Art Institute in Chicago, and he was always a little depressed, and we found out later that he was basically smoking pot probably every day from age 14, or at least excessively through high school, to self-medicate his depression probably. But anyway, he graduated, he did well on his SATs, and he went to the Art Institute of Chicago for a year, studied art, and then he dropped out, and he went to Kennebunkport in Maine to boat building school, which we thought, fine, yeah, that's a good career if you don't want to do art. And we got a phone call after he'd been there a couple of months that the person said, does your son do hard drugs? So I said, well, I don't think so. I'm his mother. I don't know. I don't necessarily know. So the person on the other end said to me, well, let's hope that's what it is. But it turns out he was talking to the sky. He was just behaving really bizarrely. So it turns out that he was having his first manic episode.
Psychotic disorder can be a variety of things and can be induced by substance abuse, whether it be illicit drugs or illicit drugs. Illicit drugs would be the use of cocaine. And we can have a psychotic disorder with regard to a substance abuse problem, especially if that substance abuse involves illicit drugs frequently, with intensity, with frequent duration. We can induce psychotic behavior with regard to that. Schizophrenia happens to some of us some of the time, and portions of schizophrenia can be dealt with effectively long before it becomes schizophrenia, because once again, if we look at the operational definition and the criterion, we know that the person has to have exhibited that behavior for at least 6 months in duration. and they have to exhibit a lot of different behavior. It's not just delusional behavior. It's not just hallucinatory behavior. And it's not just flat affect, and it's not just disorganized thinking. It's really a combination of all of those things.
So, Jamie's at the Bridgeport Long-Term Hospital, and I'm driving to pick him up for a pass, which now that he's doing really well, he's allowed to come on, quite a few passes. So I try to make it a regular pass, so every Tuesday from 2 till 8, and then at the weekends, often Friday from 2 till Sunday 8 o'clock, so that's the whole weekend, so it's two sleepovers. We have to keep him safe. He gets tested for drugs and alcohol on his return. He loves to come out with us. I really like to do this because I know it does him good, and we like to see him, and it's really nice to have a regimen and have a time when we know we're going to have him, and I leave time aside for him so that we can spend some quality time with him and cook and keep him safe and do fun things and just be family together.
Smoked a regular cigarette in a while. This is me at my freshest. I'm ready to get out of the hospital. I think that Dr. John's done a beautiful job. I feel mentally stable. I feel even. And the only thing that stresses me out is being in the hospital for too long. Because
You can't have a cigarette.
no, that's not it. Not at all. Just a mixture of people, but it's been changing now. Like, there's a better mixture of people there now, so I'm less stressed out.
Jameson has been ill for 11 years, and it started when he was about 19, and he came home to live at home for about 2 or 3 years, I think. He actually built a wooden boat after he came back from boat building school, but it became increasingly difficult to help him and care for him and bring up our other 2 daughters, who are 6 and 10 years younger than him. They were not getting the attention they needed. He was quite disruptive to he was disruptive within the house, especially when his psychosis kicked in. And those were tough times. I knew he needed to be in the hospital, but I waited. And it's always really, really hard as a parent to make that call, especially at the beginning of the illness, and you just don't want to see them go into the hospital. You just don't.
I held off on agreeing to the calling for police and ambulance, but while I was on the second floor, Carol was on the lower floor and decided to call the police and ambulance. Sorry. Obviously, it's very. It's 12 years ago. It still sticks in my mind. It's pretty vivid.
At one point, I was at 90% psychotic, probably 110% psychotic. I feel like I really thought I was possessed by the Grim Reaper and every other demon on earth. I was that powerless over myself. And at first I was accusing my father of one thing after another. I thought he had molested me in the shower, and turns out that after thinking about it for a long time, I was molested when I was 17. by this older man in California, and I read a psychology book, and it was talking about how you blame your father for all the time, for all the bad things that a man can, I know now it wasn't him. I mean, that's like my father. No, I know my father would never do something like that, but I was out of my mind, like, so I don't feel so bad about that. But that wasn't it. The same night, I don't know how I got this psychotic, but the same night, they were watching television. My sister and my father. My sister was like to my left, and my father was to my straight dead ahead of me. In between him and me was like a small table. And I said, "Father, I have to kill you, or you're going to hell."
This gets me every time whenever I think about this, but anyway, it's important. So, and Jamie walked up to me and said, "Why?" He basically, I forget exactly what he said, but he noticed the siren. He was in psychosis, and I just hugged him, and I knew that the siren was actually emergency services coming, and we were on the second floor of the house, and I could see down the driveway, and a police car coming up the driveway, and the ambulance arriving, and then I told Jamie that I thought he needed to, he really needed to go with the police, and everything was okay. We loved him, and I was very emotional. Jamie was very distraught, extremely distraught.
I just feel sad that without assaulting his dad, he wouldn't necessarily have got the help he needed. He probably would have gone into hospital, stayed there for a week, 2 weeks, come out, cycle all over again. He has a severe mental illness. He has spent a lot of the last 12 years or 11 years in the hospital, on and off, and it's been a rough road for him especially. And the people who were trying to help us get him into different housing said, it's better if you leave him on the street, and then he'll get picked up very quickly to go into housing, or he'll go into the hospital and then he'll get into housing. So we had it was a really gut-wrenching dilemma to think that we might put him on the street. It just didn't sit well with us, so what we did was I'd pick him up during the day, and then I'd drop him off at the shelter, hoping that he would get on a list and get into some housing. This lasted for about 3 weeks, and during that time, although he had his medication, he went off it. He lost the wherewithal to take his medications, and he started drinking, and I think he got himself into trouble a little bit on the streets,
Well, the support begins by really education. The more the family knows, the better they can be of help to their loved one. The opposite is true as well. The less they know, and the more they take these things personally, the poorer the family is going to do as a unit. Think of the family as a team, and the poorer the person's going to do that's afflicted with the illness.
Seeing him today, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if he had got the different treatment, and it's good to see him, and I really hope he just gets better. Hope he gets good treatment. And talking to him, sometimes I see that he's like lucid. Other times I could see him drifting off, and that concerns me a bit, So, but it is really good to see him, and I'm glad I took the time today to catch up with him. It's very hard to keep in touch with Jamie because I don't know where he is. I got married, and he didn't even know I got married, partially because I didn't know where he was. Because I had heard he was in and out of hospitals. At one point he went missing. I didn't even know he was alive when like a couple years ago. I had no idea. Because last thing I heard was that he had disappeared for a significant period of time. And I think I heard through maybe the sister that, you know, he was okay.
Homelessness and mental illness kind of go hand in hand. It's difficult to figure out which occurs first, but being homeless can be a relatively good characteristic of mental illness, because why is the person homeless? Well, if they're experiencing delusions and hallucinations and grossly impaired judgment and flat affect and all the above, it would kind of make sense that they would not be able to sustain the responsibilities of a home.
If Jamie ever runs away, you kind of know he's in one of two places. He's either in New York City or he's in the middle of the forest. I had a message from my friend Bree that she also lives in the city, that she saw him walking outside of her school randomly. So I'm like, bring him to Union Square. Don't tell him that I'm going to be there, because he might not want to see me or come home with me. Bring him there. I'm going to meet you in 10 minutes. I'm going to walk there. So I go and I meet her, and, you know, Jamie's like surprised, but he doesn't even act like it's a big or weird deal or whatever. He's just like chilling with Bree, but utterly delusional. So I get him to the dorms. I make him take a long hot shower, but then he comes out, he still had all these like gunk dirt things in between his toes and cuts on his feet, so I cleaned his feet and his cut for him. And so he passes out after having a shower and the food and, you know, being homeless for, a couple weeks. Maybe more, maybe, I don't know. And he goes to sleep, and then in the middle of the night, he woke up and he was like, "Who are you?" And I said, Jamie, it's Phoebe, you know, you're here, you're in the dorms, you're safe. He goes, "Phoebe, what are you doing sleeping on the streets?"
I see Jamie everywhere in the city. Good and bad. I see a lot of homeless people in the city, and I see my son. I do. And it's actually pretty heartbreaking.
I'm getting overwhelmed. So I've been there over a year. I've missed 3 visitations to England. I spent 2 Christmases in the hospital.
Your investment time?
Thanksgivings, luckily, I made it home.
Your living expenses?
But it just gets stressful not needing to be there, but being there. But I've got a spot. That's good news at Casa de Rosa in Waterbury. They're just waiting for someone to leave a bed.
Casa in Waterbury. As soon as a bed becomes available, he's first on the list. But it might be 4 to 6 months before the client at Casa that he'll replace, you know, the bed that he needs won't be vacated until the client who has it now has moved on. I think maybe to Section 8 housing. He's moving to the next level. But because of the system and just the overwhelming demand for a very short supply of housing or any kind of care at any level, things move very slowly.
I think halfway homes can be beneficial, but it's contingent upon the quality of the halfway home, the services, the training, the staff involvement, occasional visits from family members, if the halfway home is organized and structured, all that can be of help.
That's frustrating, obviously mostly for Jamie, but also for us, because we would like to see Jamie in a situation where he's not as he is now in a hospital, it's basically locked down. It's a controlled environment. Casa, it's just the next level of care. Jamie will have more freedom, but still get the appropriate level of observation and making sure that he adheres to his medication regime.
I mean, Jamie goes through phases of hating the hospital, you know, dreading going back, all of that, and sometimes it's better for him. I mean, Bridgeport Mental Health has been a really great place for him in the past and now. They have a pretty good program there, but I know being locked up in the hospital makes him miserable, and I haven't seen the casa, but he's done pretty well in halfway housing before, and I think he's well enough to be there now. I just hope that he would continue to keep it together and take his meds, and because sometimes he gets, you know, to the point where he doesn't think he's ill. Like right now, he's saying that he doesn't have schizophrenia.
Well, today is not the day I actually leave the hospital. I'm going to Waterbury to check out the place where I'm going to be. It's a sort of a quick visit, like for lunch or something. How long are we gonna be there, Mom?
An hour and a half.
We're gonna be there about an hour and a half, and it's kind of like an interview to make sure I'm not gonna be that I got good hygiene and I'm not gonna punch anybody or all the like psychotic things that could happen. In the hospital, I've actually been quite calm lately, which is good. Dr. John said I was ready to leave 6 months ago, so we're just waiting for a bed to open up in this place we're going to. And as soon as there's someone waiting for a spot, so as soon as he gets accepted at the secondary housing, I'm gonna jump into the Casa de Rosa and have his bed. I'm not nervous or anything. I'm just psyched to be one step closer to getting out. And I'm hoping they'll say as soon as I get there, you know what? They'll give me a date for one thing, so I can look forward to a specific time. Like this is my hope, is that they're gonna tell me, oh yes, we found a bed for him, but he has to wait a certain period of time to move in. So I'll have a date of when I'm gonna move in.
Jamie needs to learn to live independently if he's ever going to make it, and we love having him home, but it's too difficult for us to look after him at home full time at the moment anyway, and I think that this is a step in the right direction of becoming independent.
He said to me, he said, Phoebe, all I need is for you to believe in me, and for you to believe that I'm gonna have everything I want one day too. And I had to take a step back and realize that I should, and I do. I have to believe for him. Someone, we have to hope for him that things are gonna get better. Because if there isn't that hope or that belief, then he's kind of just lost. He needs all of us to still believe that things can get better. So I try really hard not to look at it as something that's going to be a forever thing. Even though it's been for so long, I try and think that it's going to end one day.
What we have in place now is of help. We're still definitely in the infancy stage with regard to effective treatment with regard to this. It's certainly much better as compared to the days of where these people were routinely institutionalized. Back in the 40s, we didn't have any of the medications and different types of drugs that could be very effective in terms of treating some of this behavior. So things have gotten progressively better. We still have a long way to go with regard to things. Again, better medications, better education, better family support, better community understanding. All these things together lead to an improvement in the quality of life of a person that's suffering with this type of illness.
I just like to say, a person can think of their lives linearly, but what happened to me, whatever is wrong or going on in my brain or my heart, is so complex that I see my life like an orb, like a ball of energy, I can almost visualize my life as energy, and there's little dots in it, and that's how I remember my life. I look at one dot at a time, but there's no sequence, because there's parts of my life I can't remember before 21. Like my memories, some things I just completely don't remember, and some things I remember like so distinctly. It just, or succinctly, whichever is a real word. Which is strange. I can say now I'm 31. I got the illness when I was 21. That is extremely complicated too. What the illness is and how I got it. If it's even schizophrenia. I mean, I still question: do I have schizophrenia or schizoaffective? Am I so schizophrenic I don't even know I am, or am I just not hallucinating?